Housing Finance Bank, a financial institution regulated by Bank of Uganda. Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Spectrum. We are coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90, which is broadcasting from the central building here in the heart of our city, Kampala, along the Store Street. This radio station is also live on the different radio listening apps. Those can be obtained from the Google Store of your smartphone. They include TuneIn, Afromobile, your TV channel, Radio Garden, and Stream Africa. When you download any of those radio listening apps, you look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you'll be able to listen to us. We're also live on DSTV. Our audio channel there is 897. Two ways to contribute to this discussion. One of the ways is actually to call in, time allowing. I'll open the phone lines for you to do so. But a quick and very simple way is actually to send us a message on our WhatsApp line, which is 0703 090 090. Remember to tell us who you are and where you're writing from. Give us that question or comment, and the panelists on this show will be able to respond to you. My name is Kenneth Lukwagandason, your host, and today we'll be understanding menstrual health issues and associated challenges. Now, Uganda today joined the rest of the global community to observe the Menstrual Hygiene Day with a call from some stakeholders for government to fulfill its pledges to girls and women over the issue of free but also cheaper sanitary pads. They said that this pledge was made over 9 years ago, and it's yet to be fulfilled, yet the reasons that prompted that pledge have become more pronounced, and most especially in schools where many girls are struggling with issues around menstrual hygiene. Now, available statistics show that 1 in 10 girls in Africa misses school during their periods due to stigma and discrimination, and that on average, a menstruating girl misses 13 learning days of every school term. Now, additionally, it's estimated that 23% of adolescent girls aged between 12 and 18 drop out of school following the onset of menstruation. There are also other cross-cutting issues, including challenges at workplace, general lack of understanding that menstruation is a normal, and failure to treat it as a sexual and reproductive right. So this evening, I have two ladies to share with us their thoughts about this matter, but also reflect on the commitments made by the government in the past, and even today in Butaleja district, where the national celebrations were actually made. Now, joining us on the line, Ms. Rosette Nanyanzi, the Gender Technical Advisor at the Ministry of Education and Sports. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
Thank you.
My name is Rosette Nanyanzi, and I work with the Ministry of Education and Sports. I'm happy to be part of this program this evening.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. In studio, Ms. Shadia Namanda, Legal Officer at the Women Pro Bono Initiative. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Kenneth. I'm happy to be with you today, and I hope we deliberate on some important issues today.
All right. I'll begin with you, Shadia, here in the studio. Menstruation Day, the world today we're commemorating Menstruation Day. Let's look at this very day. How is it relevant to Uganda, and why is it important for us to actually commemorate it?
First of all, did you know that this day was actually strategically selected for the 28th of May? You know, a woman's cycle takes 28 days, which is the 28th day. And the 5th month, which is 5, periods usually normally take 5 to 7 days, but majority take 5 days. So this day is relevant to us. It's a way of us raising awareness about the importance of good menstrual hygiene management for women and girls worldwide. This day highlights the challenges and hardships many women and girls face due to their menstruation, and promotes actions to ensure they can manage their periods safely, hygienically, and with dignity. Tragically, women and girls suffer from stigma, and they are inadequately prepared to manage menstrual hygiene. They lack washrooms and are deprived of clean water and necessary equipment for menstrual hygiene. So in Uganda, we definitely do need this day. Well, it does not mean that on other days we do not advocate for menstrual hygiene management, but this day stands out and we have to create more awareness than usual.
All right. Menstrual hygiene, what exactly does it entail? When you talk about menstrual hygiene, what are we looking at? What are the issues that come out? Even as you are reflecting on this day today, what are some of those issues that come out for Uganda?
Okay, so when we are talking about menstrual hygiene management, we are looking at clean menstrual management material to absorb or collect menstrual blood. Well, I don't know if you have a phobia for blood, because I think today languaging, we are supposed to call a spade a spade.
No problem with that.
So we are looking at clean menstrual management material to absorb or collect menstrual blood that can be changed in privacy as often as necessary. It's advised to change a sanitary towel after 8 hours. So we're also looking at using soap and water for washing the body as required, and having access to safe and convenient facilities to dispose of used menstrual management materials.
All right. And when you look at the situation in Uganda, where are we? Are we compliant? Are we meeting our obligations or the expectations as far as menstrual hygiene management is concerned?
Well, unfortunately, I would like to say we are still underperforming generally. I'm going to take you back to early this year in I think it was February, where we had the scenarios about the school the primary school girls in Jinja that were using soil as menstrual products. I don't know if you saw that story, but there were, during that time, the girls, because of period poverty, they cannot afford sanitary towels, not even the reusable sanitary towels. So they resorted to using unhygienic sanitary gear like soil, polythene bags, and old-torn pieces of cloth.
Here in Jinja?
Here in Jinja, yes. Surprisingly, here in Jinja. So one of the interviews, I'm not going to disclose the name, but one of the girls explained how it actually works, because, when you think about it, you're like, how can one use soil, But she did explain how they used to make it work. So she explains and says that they used to pile soil into polythene bags, then fold the polythene bags neatly, creating small holes on one side, then wrap a cloth around the self-made sanitary pad so that the soil can absorb the blood. Realize how absurd that sounds. So she explains that personally she used to use 2 knickers, puts one in the middle, and then wears tight shorts that can help hold the self-made sanitary pad and prevent it from falling out. So she also, I remember she added that on some days during school days, she would not go to school because she thought that they are going to laugh at her. She would feel uncomfortable, like what will happen? What if I stain? Or during the holidays she will not even leave home. So currently, that's the status we are having right now. Girls missing school because of something that happens normally and something that has happened every month to every woman. Menstruation is something that happens to all of us, whether you're privileged or not.
All right, let's go to Nanyanzi, who is on the line. Ms. Nanyanzi, you're coming from Butaleja, where there was a commemoration of this day. What kind of feedback can you give to us looking at this topic that we're discussing? Shadia here talks about the situation in schools. I know you work with the Ministry of Education, where you are the gender technical advisor. These issues of menstrual hygiene management, even in a school setup, how are you looking at them as the Ministry of Education?
Thank you very much, Nanda. Thank you, Shadia, for sharing such some of the feedback from the field. But this is an issue that the Minister of Education has been giving priority since 2014. And to that effect, we know that we already have evidence that girls miss between 4 to 5 days attending to menstruation. And that has implications on their performance, but also participation in school activities. So as Minister of Education, we have put a lot of emphasis on trying to ensure that we provide information, because given our mandate, that is the first thing that we have to do to ensure that young people get information concerning what is happening to them so that they can be able to manage. That aside, we are aware that the teacher plays a critical role to ensure that this information gets to the learners. So we have been building the capacity of the learners and the teachers so that they can be able to support. We have also prioritized construction of facilities that are menstrual hygiene friendly. In our construction design, we have been integrated facilities like incinerators so that girls can easily dispose water, ensure that they can be able to wash, and as well as changing rooms. But that aside, we note with concern that the need is huge. And this need is huge simply because the different duty bearers have not played their role. For instance, when the child is coming to school, as Minister of Education will say, provide emergency sanitary pads. Just imagine. But as a parent, you have a role to ensure that you provide the basic needs to the child. That is a sanitary pad so that this child can be able to come to school, remain in school, and they don't be dropped out of school. But when parents try to do their role, of course, we see a lot of absenteeism, we see a lot of poor performance, especially in practical subjects. And at the end of the day, because of the poor performance, these children end up dropping out from school. So what does that mean? That as we commemorate the International Menstrual Hygiene Day, we try to create awareness, raise the fright of the adolescent girls, but also call for action from the different stakeholders to support adolescent girls to be able to manage this stage with dignity.
All right, let's come back to studio. You heard from Ms. Nanyas there suggesting that it shouldn't be considered as only a responsibility for the government because they're in charge of schools, but even the parents themselves can provide emergency sanitary pads. When you look at the legal framework, is there an obligation on the part of government or even the Minister of Education to intervene in such issues, or this is a role of a family, parents who actually are responsible for upbringing these children?
So we do have legal framework, domestic and internationally. But before I address that, I'd like to address something. She mentioned something about the parents. The parents having to do their role, yeah. So when you're looking at menstrual hygiene management, we are looking at availability, the accessibility, and the affordability of these menstrual products. So surprisingly and tragically, in Uganda, we still have households that survive on $1. That's like 3,500, 3,600 Uganda shillings. And the lowest cost of sanitary towels is 2,000 shillings and 2,500. And definitely where a parent or, husband, wife, mother, father has to choose over feeding their family and buying sanitary towels, definitely they are going to prioritize feeding. So I do not think that the parents should be blamed for this, These people are living below poverty line. And the government actually does have the mandates to provide all the necessary products. The Constitution, specifically when you look at Article 33, it mandates the state to give women equal status with men in society and to provide facilities and opportunities necessary to enhance the welfare of women to enable them to realize their full potential and advancement. So further on, when you look at the Constitution, we still have the objectives in the Constitution, and we have, one of the objectives, we have Objective 14. It puts a mandate onto the state to endeavor to fulfill the fundamental rights of all Ugandans and to social justice and economic development. And the state particularly has to ensure that all developmental efforts are directed at ensuring maximum social and cultural well-being. So whereas we do not have an express provision in the Constitution that is providing a mandate onto the state to provide for menstrual hygiene management, we may mostly have provisions that are guaranteeing the right to clean water, right to sanitation. But having an express provision or a policy that is addressing menstrual hygiene management. We do not have that.
All right. You've been going to the field. Ms. Nanyas talks about the status of schools, because we are looking at the girls who actually miss out going to school because of menstrual hygiene issues. Ideally, what should we expect in a school where you think menstrual hygiene management is being handled properly? What should we look at?
Let me give an example of what was done in Rwanda. I think around 2015, there was a ministerial order that required all schools and academic institutions to set aside a room. Yeah, this is like a changing room, and in that room there must be sanitary towels, there must be a bed, something to help you in case you need to change a sanitary towel, or you need to rest, because periods are actually very painful. I don't know if you know that, but they are very painful. So that room must have a bed. This directive also called for clean water, adequate clean water for people to be able to clean themselves in case they need to change. So in Uganda, I think we tried to achieve that, though there was a national strategic plan that was passed in 2015. It was supposed to be a 5-year strategic plan, and it was calling for schools to be more involved in menstrual hygiene management. And one of the things it was calling for, we have the provision of adequate clean water in schools and emergency sanitary towels. However, that was supposed to be a strategic plan to be enforced between 2020 to 2025, though it has never really been passed.
All right. You say the obligations are on the government to actually provide some of these sanitary wares and things like that. So what exactly does the government need to do? And then we'll go back to Ms. Nanyanzi to look at some of the things that they have actually undertaken to do while in Butaleja.
So the first thing, the most effective thing that the government needs to do is to provide sanitary products. I don't know how many times I have to stress that that's going to be like the first thing. Provide sanitary products. That's going to be the most effective way.
They should buy them?
It's the government. They need to budget for them. Actually, I don't think we should be buying sanitary towels. You see, we have condoms given out at health centers for free. When you're walking along the road, you'll find them dumped all over the place. They're very new and very sealed. So I think the same should be done for sanitary towels. Then the other thing the government needs to do is to work on we need an amendment on the taxation policies. Maybe these sanitary towels will not be costing as much as 3,000 shillings if it were not for the tax. Then also, I think
have taxes on sanitary towels?
Yes. They must be in form of VAT. So we also have the diaper tax. I think you've heard of it, yeah? This is the 18% tax that has been imposed on adult diaper tax. Girls with mental health challenges do not use normal sanitary towels like us, because you could just remove it and throw it anywhere. So normally they give them diapers because it's just something she's wearing. But affordability and accessibility of this has been made hard and impossible because of the tax. The prices are way too high. So the government needs to amend the taxation policies.
All right. Let's go to Ms. Nanyas. Ms. Nanyas, you're still with us on the line?
Yes.
All right. You heard from Shadia here in studio on the issue of accessibility. Using the example of schools, for instance, she says in Rwanda, all schools have a changing room. They are stocked with sanitary pads. There are also beds there. And it's treated as almost an emergency in each school. Can we borrow a leaf from there? Are we heading in that direction?
Yeah, thank you very much. We need to appreciate that we are taking good steps towards that. And I heard Shadia talking about the strategic plan. Those are some of the things that have been presented so that we are able to address them. But as we go into that, we should also be mindful of our population. I think the population of Uganda compared to Kenya, compared to Rwanda, we are many, but also the population of women that are menstruating, women and girls. So what are we doing currently? We already have the provisions in our guidelines on provision of emergency sanitary pads, provision of changing rooms and washrooms, as well as incinerators as part of the new construction for our facilities. Again, schools are guided to provide emergency sanitary pads. But as government is doing that to provide the emergency, I think the role of the parents needs to be emphasized. According to the Education Act, parents have a role to play to ensure the education of their children. One of the roles is to provide, ensuring that they enroll children of school-going age, but also ensuring that they provide the basic needs. And I would think that a basic need, a part of the basic need for any adult and girls. So, as government is doing their work, I would call upon the parents also play their role. As you're buying bread, as you're buying food, can you prioritize a menstrual product? And then on the cost of these products, because that is also an issue, and I think that is where the likes of Shadia need to come in, so that we engage the different stakeholders, the different legislators on the tax, on the reduction of the tax for menstrual products. And when we talk about these products, we're not talking about the pads alone. We are talking about issues like soap. We are talking about water, so that girls can be able to manage. But that is an issue that requires advocacy, which all of us can have a role to play.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90, live on our website, which is www.radio1fm90.com. We're also live on DSTV, audio channel 897. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line. I've seen a comment coming in from Babu. I'll read that comment when we return from the break. But before we actually go for that break, Shadia, in your argument as an organization, you're saying that there's a connection between menstrual hygiene and the rights of women as far as sexual, reproductive, and health rights are concerned. But very quickly, share with us those particular issues that you think are pertinent in that regard.
So when we are looking at the sexual and reproductive health and rights for women, we are looking at their right to health, we are looking at their right to education, and this can include the comprehensive sexual education. We are looking at their right to work, their right to dignity, their right to access to information. So unfortunately, we've been advocating for the sexual and reproductive health and rights, which I'm going to be calling SRHR. Though we face a problem with our government, anytime you front the word SRHR, they think you are promoting homosexuality or you're trying to push for abortion, things that have clearly been criminalized in this country. So the rights are actually intertwined, yeah? So the women's rights, the women's SRHR rights that arise from the menstrual hygiene management, you're looking at right to information, yeah? We have many instances where a girl will start their menstruation period and they do not know what to do. Earlier on, I was attending a webinar and this woman was narrating about a girl who did not know what to do, and when she started her period, a friend advised her to insert cotton in herself, in her vagina. And slowly by slowly, she started rotting. And this is all because of the right to the basic information on what exactly is to be done. So then we also look at their right to health. Clearly, if we do not have, since we are focusing on schools, if we do not have an adequate source of clean water, this is you coming, or you're male, this is me going to school, and then maybe along during that day, during classes, or my sanitary is full and I need to change, or I start, I have to clean up to wear a new one. But if you do not have enough clean water, there's no way you're going to clean up. And it's very hard. You don't expect girls to be carrying bottles of water to school just because she has to clean herself.
We have to go for a break. Spectrum on Radio 1 will continue. I'm looking at a number of comments that are already coming in. We'll be reflecting on those words when we return after this break.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum, live on Radio 1 FM 90. Our topic of discussion today, understanding menstrual health and the associated challenges in Uganda. We're having a discussion as part of the commemoration of the International Day of Menstrual Hygiene Management, which was commemorated today in Butaleja. And in studio, I have Ms. Shadia Namanda, legal officer at the Women Pro Bono Initiative, one of the organizations that issued a statement about this particular day, and they are doing advocacy around this particular area. Also joining us on the line is Ms. Rosette Nanyazi. She is the Gender Technical Advisor at the Ministry of Education and Sports, which superintends over schools where issues of menstruation hygiene are critical to ensure that the girl child actually stays in schools. Ms. Namanda, let's conclude on that part where you were sharing the issues around menstrual hygiene and the rights of women, and then we'll go to Ms. Nanyazi to look at some other issues, including there are issues to do with workplace, but there are also issues to do with male involvement in this particular advocacy to ensure that issues of menstrual hygiene management are understood widely by the entire public. Let's continue where you stopped before we went for the break.
So we're still discussing the right to health, yeah? So provision of adequate clean water for them to clean themselves. We have recently we were advocating for reusable sanitary towels. But these are sanitary towels you're going to use today, then you wash it and keep it and use it another time. But if a girl does not have access to clean water, adequate clean water at that, she will not be able to wash it for it to be clean. And we are going to have more cases of infections coming out of that. So such things need to be addressed to increase access to menstrual health products and the accessibility and the clean water.
How about the workplace? How do the challenges actually manifest at the workplaces? What have you been able to see?
I would like to refer to what some jurisdictions have done. For example, we have Japan and India. Yeah, they've incorporated menstruation leave. You know how you have your sick leave, and then they have menstruation leave. Whereas for some countries do not have laws for that. They have their company policies that are actually advocating for that. Now, menstruation leave, this is you getting leave because sometimes the periods are really painful. And when you discuss some of these issues with doctors, they do not advise you to keep on taking painkillers all the time. So what can you do? Sometimes all you need is a hot water bottle and, to rest. Put it on your lower abdomen, and there is a way it does help with the pain. So if we could have menstruation leave for those days that are really bad, it would be a great thing. Then maybe the other thing that we need at workplaces, some workplaces do not have changing rooms. You go to work, you will need to change. You do not have enough water. All that there is a sink for you to wash your hands and the toilet, flushing and all that, but there is nothing more. So you're put in a situation whereby you have to change a sanitary and you're not going to be able to clean yourself. Or in case you've managed to figure it out, you do not have where to dispose it off. So unfortunately and embarrassingly, you have to move with it in your bag wrapped around, a kavera, tissue, whatever you're going to find. So those are some of the issues being faced currently at workplaces.
Right, let's go to Ms. Nanyazi. Very quickly, Ms. Nanyazi, I don't know if you can hear us. Are you there on the line? Can you hear us? Well, maybe let me just get back to you very quickly. Are you still on the line? Can you hear us loud and clear?
Yeah, you.
Yes, very quickly, you heard from your colleague here in the studio. Let's look at some of the issues. You as a gender expert, workplaces, but also male involvement in this campaign, really. Because we are looking at a situation where there is stigma, maybe such as a girl gets her periods and the boys in school are actually maybe making fun of her, things like that, things that keep chasing them away from school. How can we actually address these issues at workplaces, but also making sure that men are involved in the advocacy as far as menstrual hygiene is concerned?
Yeah, thank you very much. The good thing you're speaking, and I'm on the road. And I'm imagining if I've been menstruating, how I would travel from Butareta to Kampala. So there is a lot of work that we need to do, not just in workplaces, but right from the roads where we move. When we don't have such facilities conducive for women on the road, it means that women are going to face a number of activities including travel, which can be contributing to national development. So moving forward, I think we need to engage at different fronts and not just engaging men and boys alone. We need to engage the engineers. If they are putting up roads, and we have such facilities on the roads. When you look at the buses when they travel, you see that many they run to the bush. What happens to a woman who is going to a message is just to travel from here to Barara? So these are areas. When it comes to who do we need to engage, I think it is very important that we engage the men and boys as champions of the change we want to see. While men have sisters, men have wives, men have daughters, but also traditionally men are the heads of the household. So can they be able to provide to the household through provision of the sanitary pads? As Minister of Education, we already started with the agenda. We engage the boys and men through school clubs, but also within the school setting. We have the senior men and senior women teachers who are already doing a lot of work to ensure that we bring the boys and men into the discussion. But we still have a long way to go when it comes to making sure that women can menstruate wherever they are with dignity. Thank you.
All right, let's come back to studio here, and we have comments that are already coming in from the listeners, but maybe, Shadia, you have something to say about what you're doing to actually ensure that men and boys are actually aware of this particular challenge, because earlier on you actually said that menstruation is actually normal and everybody should be able to accept it. What are you doing? What should we do actually to ensure that boys and men are part of this effort?
So we need to have...
Or why is it important for them to actually be part of this effort?
So first, like Madame Nanyanzi mentioned, traditionally men are the leaders of the family. Yeah? So you also find homes whereby they only have a fatherly figure. They do not have a mom, where children do not have a mom. So why we need more male engagement? We need to break taboos and stigmas. Unfortunately, we have many myths and misconceptions on periods whereby some people think they are impure. You know, if they hear of something like, oh, this girl is on her period, someone will think she's impure or she's dirty. An example is, I'm a Muslim, you know, and in Islam, I don't know who came up with it, probably somewhere along the way we mixed the Arabic culture with the religion, but they do consider that if a woman is on her periods, she's impure, something that I do not agree with. Because this is something natural, this is something that's happening to me because the egg was not fertilized. So by all means, I have to go into my periods. I don't know how that is going to make me impure. So we need to break such taboos and stigmas, and they are very, very common in the men. So this is why we need to have more male engagement. The other thing is that we have many men that are holding key positions, be it in parliament, be it in the corporate world, even out here on the streets, you know, the markets. We have so many men that are holding leadership positions, the LC1 chairmans. So we have to equip them with the necessary information about menstrual health management. And that would be the only way they will be able to help the girl child.
All right. We have already comments coming in, and the first comment actually comes in from a single dad. He signs off as Kapi, actually says, why do you advise a single dad with an 11-year-old only daughter to prepare for first menstruation? Much as the school says they are handling, what if they occur during the holidays? How would you advise this particular dad? Let me begin with you, Ms. Nanyanzi, on the line. How would you advise this single dad?
I think it's important that parents get the information so that they can be able to pass this information to their children. We cannot continue waiting for the teachers. As a teacher, and we call our own.
All right, I think we're losing you there. Your line is not very clear since you said you're moving, but we are going to get back to you. Shadia, how would you advise this kind of person, a single dad, 11-year-old, the only daughter? I think his question is basically, surrounding the hardship many parents face these days to actually talk about sexuality with their children. How does he actually advise the child to prepare for the first menstruation?
Well, the first thing is this father here needs to have information on menstrual hygiene management. We've been having some strategies for male engagement where we are advocating for education and training programs. We have community involvement, inclusive communication campaigns, and workplace policies. But now coming back to a father who was a child, how are you going to approach her? At 11, this is a delicate age. Yeah, this is a girl is starting the adolescence. You do not just bump onto her. You need to approach her with caution. So I'll talk to her, let her know that this is something that is normal. Tell her what are the results now that since you've started your menstruation, at this particular age, you're very able to become pregnant. Show her how a sanitary towel is worn, how often she needs to change it, and cleaning herself. You just have to talk to her like father, daughter. Do not be tough, because menstruation periods come with their own mood swings, so you do not have to be tough on her. And in case you do not know how a sanitary towel is worn, we have many YouTube tutorials on these topics.
All right. Let's continue with some comments. Henry writes in and says, pushing menstrual care to parents who are already struggling with looking after the girls not to get pregnant. Government should put affirmative action on menstrual gear, just like they did for sexual gear. The problem is that the women planners in the government are past menopause. I think this is being unfair, because I think also menopause is part of life. What would you call this? Stigmatization or something like that?
The same things we're arguing.
The same thing we're arguing. He says they don't even have a clue of what our girls are going through. Maybe if he was saying there's a gap in terms of planning, maybe that's his point there that he's actually putting across. We have another comment coming in from Chris Kasaija. Sanitary towels in schools. Your guest, Ms. Shadia, is absolutely right. The government should provide them in schools. If the government can budget for donations and money to bail out private businesses, why not simple pads? Don't forget the current Minister of Education, and the President promised those pads few years ago, but up to now, we are waiting. Secondly, very few schools in Uganda, especially primary schools, have no or limited access to clean water. Based on the spendings by government, the issue of limited resources is displaced. Surprisingly, same government has budget for special meals and drinks for meetings of ministers and MPs to the tune of 400 billion Uganda shillings for the coming financial year. And then, how can they fail to provide essential but cheaper, specifically pads and clean water for schools? That's a comment from Chris Kasaija there. Then we have another comment from Benon Fred Twinamasko. Good evening, Kenneth. Thank you for the program. What happened to health science section under science in primary schools and sexual reproduction topics in biology? She talks about these issues as if they are exotic. Thank you for the show. That's Benon Twinamasko there, who is asking whether we're still having this kind of teachings in schools. Then we have a comment from George. Thank you, Kenneth, for the show. Where do girls come from? If a home is a reference point, then I think free pads will not solve anything here. People should learn to be responsible for their daughters and family members. When we talk about family planning, this should be included. I'm aware that the Minister of Health is drafting guidelines for community health strategy. What contributions have these two women done into the minimum health care package? Uganda School Wash Report puts water coverage at school to be at 45%. What do we go talking about free sanitaries before water is 100%? I think we should advocate for water, then disposal facilities before free pads. Otherwise, schools will choke with waste. That's George listening in from Mulago there with that comment. We have another one from Ben who writes and said, the problem politicians were to appropriate money for pads can afford, so they just ignore. Village parents can't afford pads, and today in Omultan Primary School, that is Palisa, 2 P7 girls are absent due to menstruation. Now, this is an experience of a teacher in Palisa there. Then we have another comment. Before proper pads were introduced, what were village girls using? They perhaps improvise the reusable clothes until we address poverty because pads are costly. I think impurity is what the lady said women need, e.g. holiday from work to avoid wardrobe malfunction in public. That's a comment from AF there, contributing to this discussion. We have another one here from Francois. I helped my nieces during their first periods. They were scared to talk about. I learned that girls undergo change in P6 over 30 years ago. What's wrong with the schools these days? For me, we have tried to westernize everything to get so-called projects. Mothers and fathers are busy looking for money these days. That's a comment that comes in from Francois. Let's first go to Ms. Nyanyanzi to respond to some of these issues. Are you there on the line, Ms. Nyanyanzi?
Yes, I'm on the line. And I would like to respond to some of the issues raised. One, for information, sexuality education is integrated into our curriculum so that children can learn about their bodies, learn about menstruation during the different lessons delivered at primary and secondary level. Two, I also want to say that Ministry of Education has taken efforts to ensure that we engender our school facilities so that we are able to manage menstruation. Facilities like incinerators, washrooms, and water have been added. Much as we have not been able to cover all the schools, but at least this is work that is in progress. And we need to commend government of Uganda for that effort. On the issue of sanitary pads provided, I think what we are providing currently is the emergency sanitary pads. In case you came to school and you are not prepared, you are need to access a pad. But, like one of the callers said, children were not born in the school. Children come from families. Families should be able to play their roles, including providing the basic needs, which is a sanitary pad. I'm on the road. I don't know that I captured all the issues, but I think I've been able to respond to those that are really very critical. I submit.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear from you, Shadia, as you respond to some of the issues as put forward by the listener.
Well, unfortunately, some of those issues are clearly bringing out the stigma that we are trying to address, because why would you ask someone that, why would you say that a person needs to stay home so that I don't know how that person phrased it, but something to do with stay home and do not baggage the community with your, dirty clothing. Impurity
part of it.
So this is the kind of stigmatization we are trying to address, So we need to create more awareness among the male persons to know that this is something normal. In case you find someone having such a problem, if they've stained or something, you're supposed to help her, not shun them. Then the other thing, mentioning the provision of sanitaries by parents. You see, if our own government is failing to provide the basic needs, what will a family that is living below the poverty line do? You understand? So earlier on I referred to one of the circulars passed in 2015 that was advocating for water supply, menstrual health products and menstrual hygiene management. So in that circular, a review was done in 2018 to see if schools had actually enforced it. Turns out only 137 primary and secondary schools had received the circular, and only 94% of these schools had received, and only 17% had implemented the guidelines. So one of the reasons during the research, the reasons that they do find out why the other schools failed to implement, we have the poor social and physical school environments. Schools do not have access to clean water. So then we also have limited budgets for menstrual health provisions. In around, was it the 2016 to 2021 campaigns, our dear president made a promise. He pledged that the NRM, that this is in the NRM manifesto. He pledged that the government will offer free sanitary pads to address dropout rates of girls in primary and secondary schools. So this pledge was to be effected in the financial year 2017 to 2018, in which the sector was allocated the budget. The sector was allocated Uganda shillings 2.8 trillion. But unfortunately, to date, this pledge has not yet been fulfilled. So when the First Lady or the Minister of Education and Sports was once questioned about it, this was when she was presenting a budget framework paper for 2021-2022. So this is what she had to say, that such projects require huge amounts of funds for them to cover the entire country and be sustained. So you realize that whereas we are going to come out and scream our lungs out, and our government still thinks that for them to provide sanitaries, our own president pledged, by the time he made such a promise, he knew he could do it. We just don't know why it wasn't done. So by the time our governments are failing, I don't know how you would expect some parents to actually afford.
All right. Any other issue that you want to respond to in the comments? There is one particular comment coming in from Yasin, who says to Shadia, impurity to your faith, as you mentioned, is in that period only, in the context that you are not allowed to have intimacy, pray, and fast, etc. Otherwise, you are a normal person. You may need to read that area very well. And he says, just to correct that's a correction he seems to be giving you there. And then we have another comment from Chris Kasaija. True children come from families, but their families pay taxes to government, which is spending lavishly on luxurious items. Please don't forget, majority of families in Uganda, 70% plus, live below the poverty line. Well, we are first coming to the end of this discussion, so I will allow you to give your closing remarks. There's a comment from Francois here. The issue was the lady talked of holiday for people with painful periods, and I thought a holiday fits her assertion. I don't think it's stigma to help them. And let's stop the things of waiting for free things. Teach their girls how to practically make these pads. That's a comment from Francois there. Shadi, as we come towards the end of this show, what would be your closing remarks?
Well, I do agree with some of the comments. We are not going to wait for free things. But like I said, we've been training girls. We've had projects where we focus on training girls to make reusable sanitaries. And I did explain that the problem with this, that most of these girls do not have access to clean water. There is no way a person is going to have a reusable sanitary and be able to maintain it, to use it for this month, to use it for the following month without having to wash it. That's why we are going to have more infections among these girls. So we do call upon the government to enforce all the policies they've created and to create laws that specifically and expressly provide for menstrual health management.
All right. Let's go to Ms. Nanyanzi for your closing remarks. Ms. Nanyanzi?
Yes, thank you very much, Shadia, and thank you very much, moderator. I think for me, I'm excited that this debate is raising a lot of discussions from the callers, and I would call upon all of us to play our roles when it comes to supporting women and girls to menstruate with dignity. Government can do what they can, but all have a role to play to make sure that women and girls manage well. I thank you.
Parting shots, closing remarks as we come to the end.
Thank you for this show where we've been able to deliberate on such issues, and luckily I've been able to see some of the remarks from the different people, so I've gotten to know the areas we really need to focus on.
All right. And with that, we come to the end of Spectrum. I want to thank you, my dear guest, Ms. Rosette Nanyanzi, the Gender Technical Advisor, the Minister of Education and Sports, Ms. Shadia Namanda, Legal Officer at the Women Pro Bono Initiative. I've been your host, Kenneth Lukwago Anderson. Up next, we have the news in English with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, we'll have the Soul Train with PB Jr.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Brought to you by Housing Finance Bank, a financial institution regulated by Bank of Uganda. Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
The views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of this radio station or its management.